What's going on, gamers? I am DBMgamer, and today I want to do a study of one of the characters of the Division. And he's surprisingly one of the most knowledgeable that we know about at the moment, Rick Valassi. Now before I get rolling, I have a few shoutouts to give, and I want to throw a shout out to Lee Carter, Grover Airsoft, Jose Mendoza, and Danny Granadas and Inverse Jaguar for also following me on Twitter. Rick Valassi is a radio personality to the in-game podcast Pirate Radio. Now before the events of Black Friday, he actually used to have his own show on the radio called Wouldn't You Know It. This was an entertainment and news radio show reporting from just all over Manhattan. But with the collapse of society, the disappearance of the first wave of the Division, Valassi now simply is the voice of the people as he tries to advise the citizens on things they should be aware of. It's Valassi's advice we should listen to. This Manhattan citizen, he knows his stuff. He has knowledge on the breakout of Rikers Island, the Cleaners, and the Last Man Battalion. Valassi himself can be seen via the ecosystem at an entrance into the Dark Zone. When the JTF were building the walls of the Dark Zone, a leader of the JTF was present, Michelle Padilla. Padilla herself is a member of the United States Marine Corps and is an engineer, perfectly suited to the task of building the Dark Zone wall. Valassi suspects that the government has sealed off this area to hide something, and that perhaps it's the blast zone of a bioweapon. At the moment in time where we begin, Michelle is stationed somewhere at Camp Hudson. The Dark Zone is something that does scare Rick though. An area where most of the sick were housed in December and is controlled by the unknown. The walls have grown taller since they first went up and now have barbed wire across the top of them. Now, he has visited and told about the dead bodies that were everywhere, the bullet holes and the burned out buildings. Once whatever authority was there pulled out, what happened? Did the sick attack? Who controls the zone? Was it one of the new factions that have appeared since the emergency? Is it the sleeper cell group called the Division? Valassi is appreciative of the Joint Task Force, or the JTF as we all know it. The JTF, in case you didn't know it, is comprised of firefighters, medical staff, the National Guard, and any other government organization that will respond to the emergency. It's private military groups we should be wary of. The Last Man Battalion and their leader Bliss seek not only to control the streets of Manhattan, but to go even further. Charles Bliss himself is a former lieutenant colonel of the military. Rick even mentions that there are loudspeaker trucks that go up and down the streets spreading the word about the Last Man Battalion, but they are not the only threat. He also knows about the inmates from Rikers Island that have crossed the river and are pouring into the city. That's right, the main jail complex of New York City isn't holding its criminals any longer. Did they escape, or did all the officers leave? We just don't know yet. Not everyone that has escaped Rikers is to be feared, some are just trying to return home. It's the hardtime, hardcore criminals that we should be worried about, says Valassi. Now, Rick also warns about the Cleaners, nut jobs covered in head to toe in hazmat gear with homemade flamethrowers. He suspects they could be simple city sanitation, but he also suspects that the city cleaners are representatives of the DCD scientists. Are they clearing the infection, or are they burning up evidence? It's hard to say yet, but just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Now, the most disturbing thing that Valassi says has to be the multiple references to the green poison. Green poison is a previously unknown strain of smallpox created by Gordon Amherst. Valassi all but makes certain Amherst is part of what is happening. He also knows what is going on outside of New York City. The DCD website has put out numbers on Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Atlanta, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. The numbers have to do with the infection growing. The overloading of hospitals, food shortages since the country is in a growing state of panic. The first responders to those areas are just not available since the majority of those services are in New York City. Point is, the reassuring thought that the world that you knew would still be there after this ordeal was over, the hope that kept you moving forward through this mess, well, what if the world you knew isn't there? What if it's not? Alright guys, I am out of here. If you like this type of content, just hit that like button or leave a comment, or if you just want to see some more, hit that subscribe button. But as always guys, have a good one.